Uh,
I'm going to go ahead and take us through a quorum check.
District 1, Supervisor Alejo.
Alternate Linda Gonzalez.
District 2, Supervisor Church.
Here.
District 3, Supervisor Lopez.
Here.
District 4, Supervisor Askew.
Okay.
District 5, Supervisor Adams.
Here.
City of Carmel by the Sea.
Here.
City of Del Rio.
Here.
City of Gonzales.
Here.
City of Greenfield. City of King City.
Present.
City of Marina. City of Monterey. City of Pacific Grove.
Here.
City of Salinas. City of Sand City.
Here.
City of Seaside. City of Soledad. Ambac.
Here.
Caltrans District 5.
Here.
Monterey Bay Air Resource District. Monterey Regional Airport District.
Carl Miller here.
City of Watsonville. CSUMB.
Present.
Chair, we do have a quorum.
Thank you, Eloise. With that, I know Rachel Ortiz is with us via Zoom, and so I'm going to ask council to go ahead and take us through how that's being permitted this morning.
Member Ortiz, can you hear me?
You're muted if you can hear us.
Yes, I can hear you. I apologize.
No problem. Thank you, Member Ortiz. Without identifying which of the following applies to you, is it true that one or more of the following conditions prevents you from attending today? Child care or caregiving, need for a child, parent, grandparent, grandchild, sibling, spouse, or domestic partner, a contagious illness, a need related to a physical or mental disability not otherwise accommodated, or travel while on official business. Yes or no?
No.
No. Just to reiterate, so you are not appearing today under a contagious illness or physical or mental disability, is that correct?
Oh, no, I apologize. Yes, I am. I'm sorry.
No, that's quite all right. Just making sure.
Okay.
Okay. Can you confirm that this is your first time using Just Cause as appearing before this body?
Yes.
Thank you. The formalities of AB 2449 have been observed because we have a Zoom link on today's agenda. There is physical quorum present at the agendized location. Member Ortiz may appear as a voting member of the body for today's meeting without the vote of this body. Member Ortiz, please keep your audio unmuted and your camera on throughout the proceedings. Also, you must announce any persons who are there present in the room with you who are over the age of 18. Please use the raise hand function to alert us of any adult joining you at your location. If you are unable to comply with these requirements, it may affect your ability to cast votes during the meeting. Are there any adults with you currently?
No.
Finally, due to Member Ortiz's remote attendance, the body will observe roll call voting on all items on today's agenda. Member Ortiz, is your camera functioning?
Yes, it is. I think it is.
I see a black. Yes. If you could please address that before we.
Okay. Let me try to figure this out. I apologize.
All right. Thank you, Rachel. All right, then with that, we're going to proceed. I'm going to go ahead and ask if Chaps doesn't mind leading us in the pledge this morning.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
With that, we're going to open public comment. This is an opportunity for the public to share comments regarding items not on today's agenda, but within the purview of this body. We invite folks to use the raise hand function via Zoom, *9 via landline, or come forward in room in order to make public comment. Not seeing any hands up via Zoom and nobody coming forward in room. With that, I will close our public comment and proceed to our consent agenda. Is there a member of this body who wishes to pull an item from our consent agenda for comment or alternative action? Seeing none, I'll see if there's any member of the public who wishes to pull an item from the consent calendar this morning for comment or questions or additional action. Seeing none, I'll bring it back and see if there's a motion to approve our consent agenda.
Second.
Got a motion from Potter, a second from Carbone, and with that, I'm going to ask Eloise to take us through a roll call vote.
District 1, alternate Gonzalez.
Yes.
District 2, Supervisor Church.
Aye.
District 3, Supervisor Lopez.
Aye.
District 4, alternate Mora.
Yes.
District 5, Supervisor Adams.
Aye.
City of Carmel by the Sea.
Aye.
City of Del Rio.
Aye.
City of Gonzales.
Aye.
City of Greenfield.
Aye.
City of King City.
Aye.
City of Marina. City of Monterey. City of Pacific Road.
Aye.
City of San City. Aye. Chair, motion passes.
Thank you. With that, the next item on our agenda is a presentation from the County Treasurer's Office.
Just.
I'm going to let Jefferson Keiss give us the introduction here.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and Board. My name is Jefferson Keiss, Director of Finance and Administration for TAMC. During our consideration and evaluation of the investment policy of the agency, we, in our discussions, thought that would be very helpful for the board to hear from the county's treasurer's office that manages the portfolio of funds of the pool that our TAMC funds are invested in. So we've made arrangements for their staff to be here today for the presentation for you. And I will pass the mic to Mary Z, who has come to introduce her team. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you. I know several of you, and for those of you that don't, I'm Mary Z, County Treasurer Tax Collector. With me today, I have the Assistant Treasurer Tax Collector, Jake Stroud, and Chief Deputy in Treasury, Lupe Reyes. The Treasurer's Office manages an investment portfolio and serves as the bank for the county, all the school districts, and many special districts such as TAMC. We have, right now we're in our low point because property tax bills have not come out and we don't have property tax dollars running in the treasury right now, but we average about $3.4 billion of assets that are under our management. A portion of that belongs to TAMC. So we're here today to kind of educate you what we do on a regular basis as far as the investment of funds, how we manage that, and hope you get a lot of information. Hope it's not too in the weeds because we tend to do that. But right now I'd like to introduce Jake Stroud, who will be running us through the presentation. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mary. Thank you for having us. And first of all, thank you for the work that you all do. I would imagine that transportation can often be as thankless of a job as tax collection. So I'm going to start with that. And I'm excited to be here to tell you a little bit about what we do. And it looks like it's going to be in shades of yellow today. So let's see if I can figure out the clicker just to get to the next slide. Oh,
Missing down or?
Oh, I'm hitting up. Down. Thank you. All right, so first of all, I'm going to start with the market and economic update just to identify kind of what the prevailing conditions of the market were at the time of the quarter in scope that we're looking at. We do prepare reports for our board of supervisors who are here every quarter. So a great amount of my data is going to be from that, with also some new data, especially given recent developments last week. So there's a lot of words on this slide, but I'll try to highlight some of them for you regarding the economy. Moderating economic growth was one of the key factors. Gross domestic product came in at 2.8%. Gross domestic product is a common measure of the health of the economy. Inflation has kind of been on a wild ride, as you all are probably aware, over the past few years, but it has continued resuming the path towards the Federal Reserve's 2% target. There were minor increases to unemployment, but still a strong job market and continued consumer spending and wage growth. Regarding the Federal Reserve, which is a key agency regarding the work that we do because of their influence with monetary policy and the economy, there had been a lot of debate over whether we would see rate cuts, interest rate decreases during the quarter, and that did actually happen just this last week. It was a 50 basis point rate cut, and I'll get into that in a little better detail on later slides. They also noticed that there's been better balance between their dual mandate, which the Federal Reserve's dual mandate is stable inflation and maximum employment. So those are the goals of their agency. Regarding the bond market, which is the space that we operate in, we are purchasing debt and receiving interest. It's not equities or the stock market, it's fixed income. So just to clarify that, we had another quarter of increasing yields and tight spreads between sectors, which again, I'll get into some of that information in later slides. All right, so this slide is intended to show you inflation. Like I said, the wild ride that we've been on, you can see the peak back near February of 2022, and really the downward path that it has been on. Consumer price index is what's referred to as headline inflation, and that measures kind of a basket of goods that we as consumers pay. So I know all of you have seen inflation in the grocery store, at the gas pump. So consumer price index kind of focuses on some of the common things that a consumer pays: food items, automobiles, rent, and that has come down to 2.5% as of August. Core consumer price index, really the differentiation there is just that core strips out food and energy, which tend to be more volatile. They fluctuate a lot. And so it's a bit narrower of a focus. And that was at 3.2% in the orangish red color there. So I mentioned the Federal Reserve. If you haven't seen the Fed's dot plot before, I'll try to just kind of briefly explain it. Essentially, each of those dots in the groupings represent a member and where they feel the interest rate should be that the Federal Reserve sets at the end of the calendar year on the bottom there. So 2024, you can see 2 cuts, it's kind of the consensus, and moving on to a longer term of 2.8%. This is updated regularly when the FOMC, the Federal Open Market Committee, meets, and this is the latest one that we have. So I'm going to talk a little bit about yield curves, but I just wanted to make sure that there was some common terminology here that we're under the same understanding. We'll briefly introduce them, and then we'll talk about them later. But the relationship between yield and maturity essentially is the interest that we receive on an investment over a certain course of time. So maturity moving to the right is the length of time, yield moving up and down. The y-axis there is the amount of interest that you would receive. So you can see there's different types. There's a normal yield curve. Haven't seen one of those in a while. There's a flat yield curve, and then there's an inverted yield curve as some of the common yield curves that we'll see. Right. So we had to go back a little bit before the COVID-19 pandemic to show you a normal yield curve, which is positive sloping from left to right. You can see in the yellow-orange, December 31st, 2019. And I think that's mostly intuitive. You understand if you invest for a short period of time, you're going to receive some interest back. If you invest longer, you should receive more interest back. I think that's relatively intuitive, but wanted to show you an example of kind of what things typically look like. And actually, you can see in the dashed blue, that was actually the response of the Federal Reserve to the COVID-19 pandemic. The rates were immediately dropped down near zero there, but still positive sloping lines there. So I want to move on to show you today's yield curve, which is an inverted yield curve. And wanted to show that because it's a bit of an odd dynamic to invest in. Again, you're receiving a higher yield on short-term investments than you are on long-term investments. So it can make things a bit more difficult, especially in our space. However, moving on to a very long example of a growth of $100 million invested for 20 years. And this is actual data, a lot of information there, but the point that is made by this slide is that over the long term, the same amount of money invested in longer maturity is going to earn more. So if you see the top reddish line, I guess there, it's a bit of a wild ride, but you can see where it ends the 20 years at much higher than if it were left in short term which tends to be a smoother line, doesn't kind of experience as much volatility when there are inverted yield curves and things like that over time. But the point is that typically the longer you can invest in the long term, the more money you're going to make. And this goes to show that point. All right, so now with kind of that backdrop established, we're going to take a look closer at the portfolio that we manage. And I wanted to start just to identify our goals, our government code that we operate by, 53600.5, which says that we are to pursue in this order of importance, safety, liquidity, and yield. So safety, investing in only the highest quality investments. Liquidity essentially is to say we have the money when it's needed by all the agencies that we're investing for to pay the bills, to keep the lights on, and yield then comes in third, still important to us, but that is the return on our investment. So this is our summary page of our portfolio for the quarter that we're looking at. I'm going to start in the upper left, and then I'm going to kind of make my way clockwise because there's a lot of information on this slide as well. So you can see the values of the portfolio, as Mary mentioned, right around $3.4 billion. Our weighted average maturity is essentially if you took all of the investments, the length of time that they're invested, and you took the average of that, it comes out to 408 days. And our yield to maturity, or the amount that we received back, was 4.13% overall. Credit quality pie chart on the right goes to speak to the point I made about safety. You can see 51% of our portfolio is invested in AA investments, which are very safe. I'll move on to maturity distribution. This is showing the length of time that all of our investments are invested. So you can see we have quite a bit in overnight, multiple reasons there, 701.1 million. First of all, taking advantage of the good rates at the short end of the curve, based on what I mentioned before. And also in preparation for kind of our drier summer months, we pad that up a little bit because we don't typically have a lot of incoming credits and we tend to have a lot of debits in the summer. But really the bulk of our portfolio is represented in the 6 months to 3 year space, as you can see there towards the middle of that chart. The last pie chart I'm going to look at in a little bit greater detail, but that is the sector distribution. So that's telling you exactly where all of the investments are. The leaders obviously identified there. You can see our U.S. Treasuries make up a big part of our portfolio, federal agencies, corporate notes, and I'm going to show that in greater detail right now. All right, so here is that pie chart that I just showed, but represented on a chart here. You can see things like LAIF, CAMP, CalTrust. If you're not familiar with those are our overnight liquidity accounts where we can quickly draw down and invest in every day when we manage cash flow. And other things there, you can see U.S. Treasuries are leading the way with 34.2%. I mentioned federal agencies, 11.8%, and our corporate notes are 20.9%. Just some highlights there. This is the actual issuer distribution, probably a little bit difficult to see, but hopefully you have it in your notes as well. These are all the different agencies that we have invested in, and it is 2 pages. But I think you'll recognize most of the names are what we refer to as blue chip issuers. So they're, again, safety being the first and most important thing for us. And then one more look at the sector allocation. Really, this slide is intended just to show kind of the changes over time in terms of what we're pursuing, where we might be able to pick up additional yield. If you look back towards August of 2019, you'll notice the large kind of gray section. U.S. Treasuries were very high, a very large majority of our portfolio at that point. And over time, as we've moved in towards that red outline box, we've really been able to take advantage of some higher yields in corporate notes, commercial paper, CDs, just to continue to bring in strong income going forward. I think this is my last kind of content slide. So we just want to highlight some of the characteristics of the portfolio over the past year. We really like to identify, obviously, about $35 million in earnings for the June 30th, 2024 quarter, and well over $100 million that we brought in from our work over the past year. And the point I like to make about that is that's not off of taxes and fees. So that kind of commonly makes up revenue, especially in government. Those aren't from taxes and fees. Those are just our interest earnings from the work that we've done. Another point that I would make here, as there's been some discussion, you can see our yield. If you start on the bottom in September and work your way up to June, you can see it kind of, I would say, slowly climbing from 3.1 to 4.13. If you went back another 4 quarters or another year, you'd see that kind of lower. I wanted to make the point that as you look out kind of in the environment, you might see rates for accounts or CDs or things like that that are tied directly to that Federal Reserve short term. Our portfolio is a longer duration, so it takes a little bit longer to kind of climb out of those COVID rates, so to speak. It's also going to take a little bit longer on the downward as the Fed continues its rate cut campaign going forward. So those overnight accounts are going to be tied very closely to the Federal Reserve interest rate that they set, whereas our work, we've locked in rates for 2 to 5 years based on the conditions right now. So that's going to make our yield level off and lag on the downward as well. It won't happen as quickly as the Federal Reserve rate cut campaign is going to. Hopefully that makes sense. Happy to answer any questions about that. And the last couple of slides, we do work with an investment advisor who verifies that we're in compliance with our investment policy and our government code. And then I always have to put up a disclaimer as well anytime I talk. Are there any questions for me, or go ahead, Supervisor Adams, I saw your hand first.
Thank you. Thank you. Just a question that I think probably is covered within this, not the disclaimer, but the one before that. Do we have specific policies about like not investing or not having any county money invested in things like tobacco stocks?
Maybe not directly tobacco stocks, but we do have specific policies and an investment policy that we can get you if you have questions that we could look at that in more detail. And that does outline kind of all of the requirements of our work that are based on government code and our own internal policy.
As an example, could you give me just an example? Like it's not tobacco, is it oil? No.
So we do have a good question. We do have a section of our policy that discusses kind of ESG considerations. And I think that's kind of what you're getting at, but our policy covers kind of a lot more than that. It covers even the types of investments that we can invest in per government code. Sometimes our policy is more strict than the government code based on what we feel is correct for the portfolio. But I think if you're talking about like an ESG, environmental, social governance section, that is something that we are mindful of as we select individual investments. But off the top of my head, I'm not recalling any strict like prohibitions that you might be mentioning. Does that help?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. That's a brother. Sure.
Just following up on Mary's comments, could you perhaps send that to all the board members? I'm sure it won't generate any controversy. But,
do I what? Sorry, I actually didn't hear your question.
I'm being facetious on that. But could you send that policy to everybody? On the board?
Of course. Yeah. We're happy to provide that.
Myself. Yeah.
Yes.
My question was on that slide that you had with the last 4 quarters. And you know, rates look really good. How does that compare with the inflation rate for that period? Because that's, of course, is where we're really going to see the money that's grown or fine. Yeah,
good question. So I can go back to the inflation slide. I have it in my notes here. As of August, it was 2.5%. And we can kind of see it on the line graph here as well. Sorry, that slide's ways back. Click the clicker too fast. So there's the slide that shows the inflation rate.
So that was from the last quarter. That was from August 23 to 24, which you showed us.
This slide is more.
I mean the previous slide.
It was from quarter ending June. The last
quarter ending June.
Yep, the last quarter of the previous fiscal year. Our report for the current quarter will be coming out at the end of September. We'll have it on the board agenda.
So just my visual take on this is that it looks like our returns are about comparable to inflation. Is that correct?
Good question. That's probably relatively accurate. We obviously don't directly control inflation. Unfortunately, the Federal Reserve is doing everything they can to kind of combat that. And then we're doing everything we can to generate as much yield as possible after ensuring the money's safe and liquid. So they're not directly related, but it's a great.
I understand, but it obviously has a big role of whether our money's growing or shrinking.
For sure.
And its value, which is the most important consideration. But looking at that, the other question I have, and that would be, I guess, for our own finances. How much money does TAMC have?
With all of the funds considered, I think it's about 112 million.
And is it roughly prorated out as you showed on the 1 to 3 year with that bias, but or how is it?
We don't make any of this.
Yeah, that's what kind of is that is there, I guess my question is you just kind of take the whole pool and put it in there, and you look at special needs of districts and agencies?
Good question. That is the yield for the whole pool, and then it is apportioned out to the agencies based on the amount that they have in the
questions I have.
Question.
Yeah, thanks for the presentation. While we were going through this, I was just contrasting this with CalPERS, how they manage. And it seems like the objectives are slightly different. CalPERS has an objective to meet a certain rate. The county does not, right? So you have some principles and you operate based on the principles, but it's not to say that we are going to meet a 5% rate every given year, correct?
Correct. Yeah, actually, our government code specifies that we don't. We call it yield chase, just for lack of a better term. Again, safety, liquidity, and yield. Our decisions are based on ensuring the money is safe and that it's available when it needs to be spent. And third, we're looking at yield, but we're not targeting a specific yield. We take great pride in that number, of course, and the amount that we're bringing in. But it sounds like different kind of goals or just a different organization of what they're targeting first versus us.
Okay, very good.
Good question.
And then just for my benefit, seems like the majority of the mix is in the 1 to 2 year kind of range. So fair to say that the 1 to 2 year rates is potentially what the yield is going to be, right? Roughly speaking, because there's a majority in that pool.
That would be accurate. It's a blend of all of the investments that are out there. So if the majority is in 1 to 2, I can try to find that slide just to make sure we're on the same page. But if the majority of the pool is in a certain section and it's receiving a certain percent, then that would obviously drive the calculation more than the minority of the pool. But 1 to 2 year, keep in mind, that's just the time that it will mature. There are different sectors within that time range that are also receiving slightly different yields. For example, a corporate note might be receiving a higher yield than a US Treasury over 1 year. So there's a mix within that as well. That's why we try to show it kind of from different angles, both the time and the sectors and the issuers.
Okay, understood. And then last question, it seems like at least the last slide, the disclaimer slide, showed that you're working with US.
Not sell your house in Monterey County before doing this. If you just do this one.
Get that, Mike. Don't sell your house before checking the inversion of the yield curve.
Go ahead. Sorry, I was tracking your question.
Yeah. So it appears that the county is working with a subsidiary of US Bank to manage the portfolio. Is that is the US Bank the long-standing kind of bank for all the years, or do you have like a process where you switch the manager every so often?
So we have multiple banks, but specifically for our investment advisor, it's PFM Asset Management, or essentially a subsidiary of US Bank. We've had them for a little while now, but we follow the county processes in terms of going out for RFPs or RFQs every once in a while. I don't have an exact amount that we would do that within. And then we use other banks for other parts of the work that we do in banking. Does that answer your question?
Yes. So I just wanted to know if that's a rotation, like there's an RFP process being followed.
Correct.
That's what it is.
Yes.
So, but thank you for all of you for coming here, presenting this in person. I appreciate it. Thanks.
We're happy to be here anytime. Any other questions?
Yeah, a question about your 3 liquidity accounts. Where are those held, and what's the thought process on which one you use or allocate the money towards?
Good question. So the three that I identified are CAMP, which is the California Asset Management Program. That's a local short-term pool. CalTrust, again, a local short-term pool. And LAIF. LAIF is the local agency investment formation. That's the state pool. We try to diversify. I haven't really said the word diversify. That is a key word in the work that we do as well. The time of maturities, the sectors, even down to the pools that we use. One thing that's important to us with the pools, assuming they're kind of comparable in terms of operations and that we can put money in and draw money out as we need every day with the cash flow that we're running, is we do look at the 7-day yield that they post and see, you know, which one's kind of doing better. And then we try to make sure we spread things out as well, so we don't have all our eggs in one basket there either.
But they're essentially savings accounts that you can get to at any time and pull out.
Essentially, they're not savings accounts, but yes, we can pull money out and put money in anytime we need. And we do that every day. That's part of our work every day. We manage cash flow. Blue-based team's probably doing it right now for any debits that the county has and plus the credits that we have. Do we need to pull money out of those pools? Do we need to put money in? So it is a daily operation month.
Thank you.
Thank you for the question. Any other questions, or have I?
Just a couple comments and a question. So I think the comment is more based on we hear and see large amounts potentially coming into this agency, and when we send them in, we're looking at commercial rates and what's available on the market and see that they're higher. But listening to you today, I think it's quite clear that we're taking a conservative approach to protecting the asset more so than trying to maximize the return. And I think we can all appreciate that given the agencies that we represent and what our goals are, right, which is stability. And so I want to thank you for that, because I think that's where the request for this came from, was sort of this desire of why are we seeing returns in the 3s when we're seeing 5.5% and 6% out there. So I think that helps us understand, while it may be a little frustrating, why we're taking this approach with all the different public dollars that go into the county's approach here and under Mary's leadership. And so I think the question, though, is more, given what you're seeing, and I know that it's hard to predict, and there's economists who get paid a lot of money and a lot of folks that run online gambling sites about what's going to happen to the economy and all. Inversion of the yield curve typically, over the long period of history, points to a recession. We heard the term soft landing. We see what's happening right now, and it feels like we're coming in for a soft landing, but I'm worried, just given the statistics over the last 100 years, that there's still this possibility lingering out there. I'm wondering what you and your colleagues are seeing, hearing, and perhaps what you might be able to pull from the data put up. I know that half-point cut is a big one, and there was signals of perhaps a whole nother point by the middle of next year, if not sooner. And I think those are big indicators of where the economy is going to head and what we might see that do to rates. So given that, is there anything you can share with us, at least from the perspective of a conservative government approach, of what you might see that we should be looking out for over the next 6 months to a year?
Absolutely. Thank you for the point, Supervisor Lopez. Definitely accurate to the work that we do. And the only thing I would add to it is that we have been investing in kind of this upside down environment of the inverted yield curve for some time, to go back to your first point. So that influences the yield that we're receiving as well, because we have a structure and we have a strategy, we have a discipline that we stick to ensure that all our money's not kind of in that short-term basket. So that influences that blended rate that we are receiving. And as you said, if you're comparing it to maybe something that's maybe an orange, not an apple, out in the world, that's maybe directly tied to the Federal Reserve rate. So as we get back to hopefully a more normal environment, you're going to see, I never promise yield, but you're going to see that the work that we do in the longer term investments are going to exceed the yields of some of those short-term types of accounts that money could be in for other agencies, maybe. Hopefully that makes sense, first of all. And then regarding the question regarding recession, we hear a lot of discussion about that. The Federal Reserve has been working very hard to kind of avoid that and achieve that soft landing. So far, I could speculate that what I've seen is they've done a pretty good job. This latest rate cut, there was discussion, will it be 25, will it be 50, will it come at the end of the year? I think them doing a 50 basis point rate cut, or 0.5%, was kind of an indicator that they knew they needed to get moving at this point. And there were some indicators in the job environment as well that kind of pointed to, hey, we might need to decrease things a bit faster and get back to looking at a good rate cut cycle. So I won't try to predict a recession. We're not even supposed to try to predict the interest rates. If anyone would have done that before COVID, then they would have been very surprised, as I showed on one of the slides as well. But I think from everything that we've seen, it's been a pretty stable ride to this point, and we're looking forward to getting back to a more normal yield, positive sloping environment.
Thank you. And I'll just say, being raised in a car dealership family, I'm watching that industry very closely and very curious, given 0% rates are back, when for so long people were excited to be able to buy a car. Someone allowed them to go buy a car, right? And which was a weird thing for someone who grew up in that industry. Now seeing us get back to 0% and rebates and $9,000 off sticker price, cars sitting for 365 days on the lot. To me, that's sort of the indicator that tells me things are truly cooling off, perhaps too much. So I'm really curious to see where we end up, but I know we all have the things that we track that tell us how the economy is doing. So look forward to continuing the conversation.
Any other questions? I think I maybe exceeded my time a little bit, which I apologize, but.
Anyone else? All right, let's stay on the right side of legal, take this out to public comment, see if there's any public input on this. I do see a hand up from a number ending in 1705. 1705 will give you the ability to unmute yourself. *9 should do that. Or maybe it's *6. Again, 1705, the floor is yours. If you can unmute yourself, you've got 2 minutes. Let's see if there's anyone else in the room with public comment. Hearing none, I'm going to try for a third.
Can you hear me?
There we go. We have
Can you hear me? Hello?
Hello.
Okay. Good morning. I'd like you to invest in better transport, like the train and the bus. The bus service, which I've been taking now for 35 years, has never been so deplorable as it is now. And I can no longer take it. I was able during my 34 years to calculate that I had saved about 4 tons of greenhouse gas emissions. And now I have to drive. And the 2 reasons I have to drive is, one, it's just too time consuming to go from the plaza to Carmel Valley Village, which was one route. It wasn't split up into transfers and waiting time. And the other is that no longer can the bus drivers help me lift my bike up onto the rack. I'm bone on a shoulder, and so I can't lift anymore. So these services prevent me from being able to take that, and I have to drive. So if you would invest in better transport systems, you could greatly reduce the greenhouse gases that are here in our area, and the tons and tons of people that are driving their cars because you chose to do surf instead of train. And there's tons of money for train under Biden, and you missed that opportunity. And it affects all of us, including your own families. So please start paying attention to the greenhouse gas situation. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, seeing no other hands up and nobody else coming forward in the room, we'll go ahead and close this item. And thank you so much for the presentation, Jake and Mary, for having your team here. We appreciate you. Thank you. All right, with that, we have concluded item 4, and we're going to proceed to item 5, the Salinas Valley Safe Routes to School Plan and Participatory Budgeting Update. We'll send that to Aaron for an update.
Good morning, Chair, members of the board. My name is Aaron Hernandez, Transportation Planner for the agency. Today, I am going to give you an update on the Salinas Valley Safe Routes to School Participatory Budgeting Project, We last gave you an update in early of 2023 last year, and at that time, we had just completed our process with Greenfield. This time around, we've completed the project with all 4 cities of the Salinas Valley, and I want to give you a recap of all of the work that we've done through this process and with the committee members that we worked with. One of the big things that, I hope that you guys can take away from this presentation is some of the successes that we got out from this process. The participatory budgeting project is the first type of process that we've done in transportation within our programming, specifically Safe Routes to School. And there was a lot of positive outcomes. We had very positive community engagement. It was a kind of a way to fast track projects, to build them rapidly within a short time frame. And then also it's a way to build community trust with local government and representatives. So with what I'm going to talk about today, I'm going to give an overview of what participatory budgeting is. And then following that, I'll give a larger overview of what the work we did with the steering committees with each of these cities, how that went about. And then finally, what remaining steps we have after this process. So for a quick note, participatory budgeting, this is just one component under the Salinas Valley Safe Routes to School plan. That plan should be coming to the board for final adoption this December. So what exactly is participatory budgeting for those of you that don't know? It is a democratic process where the community gets to have a direct influence in how they get to spend public funding. For this project, the TAMC board allocated $250,000 for each city: King City, Greenfield, Soledad, and Gonzales, to build on quick build projects that can be built within 3 years. So committee members with the steering committee make that decision to see how that $250,000 gets spent with a list of projects. We have a 4-step process here, which I'll explain later. And then to also add to it as well, participatory budgeting, this process is covered under we were able to do this because of a state plan grant with Caltrans that we got back in 2021, and with MeasureX funding. So in forming the steering committee, part of this grant that allowed us to do this work allowed us to partner with Ecology Action and the Monterey County Health Department. One of the big goals for forming the steering committee is that we wanted to recruit people who may have not been, part of something like this in the past, and more specifically, may have not been involved heavily with transportation planning and projects. So we did extensive community outreach, recruiting folks from the beginning of the draft plan of Salinas Valley Safe Routes through walk audits, parent meetings. But what really helped us in getting a good group of folks for each of these steering committees in each city was the Monterey County Health Department's network, existing connections that they have with the community already. They have done a lot of programming in these communities already, such as like their in-law save program, and that had really gathered a good group of folks to work through this process. So in summary, just kind of some details of what came out from the steering committees in terms of participation. The participation was really high throughout this whole process. The steering committee participated in a series of 8 monthly meetings, 3 hours long, and participation was very high throughout each of these. In combination, when combining all 4 committees, there's a total of 82 members that participated. 2/3 of them participated in 5 or more meetings, so out of the 8 meetings. So they were really consistent in trying to be engaged as much as possible. And then 2/3 of them also spoke monolingual Spanish. So it was critical for our team to provide all the resources that they need to be actively engaged throughout this process. So meetings were held primarily in Spanish with interpretation to English. we provided the option to attend in person and in Zoom. And that had actually really helped out because we learned that one of the challenges in having in-person meetings that we learned throughout all 4 committees is that it was really hard to find childcare. So the committee members were really thankful that we provided that online option for them to participate from home, had they need to stay home to take care of their children. So the participatory budgeting process with each of these committees, it started with creating the process, the whole process for the committee. A core component in participatory budgeting is that we really wanted the committees to understand that they are the ones that are making the decisions and driving the process of the outcome of implementing these projects with the cities. So we started by going over them a list of potential projects that are part of the Safe Routes, the larger Salinas Valley Safe Routes to School plan. And we gave them a list and show them do a lesson on the different types of infrastructure projects that they could possibly implement with the 250,000. And then they also designed an election plan where they formulate a set of rules and procedures for later on the wider community will get to vote on the projects that they choose. So, so the second step was selecting the projects for the ballot. So from the larger project recommendations, a lot of communities really wanted to narrow down the list. There's only a few main projects that they think are the most beneficial for the community, specifically projects that connect to safe routes or to schools. And this is where there was a lot of discussion where they debated each other and kind of discussed like what's going to be the best project for that the community should look at. And once that was decided and the ballot was ready, it was time for the community to vote. Student committee members, they've enjoyed the process overall, but this was probably the most favorite part of the process because this is where they actually get to go out with the community and speak to the community and show them the work that they have been working on and get their input. For each committee, we did an election kickoff event where it's kind of like the base event where people can come and ask questions on the projects with the team and with the steering committee. But the steering committee members, they took a lot of extra steps to promote the election further outside of the election kickoff. Pictured here is Pastora Ines. She has United Methodist Church in Soledad. She's an example of what a committee member did to take extra steps. She allowed for the team to place very large banners to promote the election at her church, and then also allowed voting for over there as well. So to promote the election and to get input, each steering committee had the decision to decide how they wanted to go about that. And each committee did something rather uniquely different. And this being our first time, there was an opportunity to see like what works, what doesn't, how can we improve, and see from that. So starting with Greenfield, Greenfield was the first committee, so they were rather more the guinea pigs, but they did get a lot with this as well. They did a town hall where folks can formally meet at Greenfield City Hall to ask questions about the projects. This was also an opportunity for local representatives like Councilwoman Yana Martinez to come speak about the projects with committees. And it was a great setup and it went well. However, the committee felt that they wish they had seen more attendance from this event itself, but that doesn't underestimate the extra work that they did outside of this event. They did a lot of canvassing, posting of flyers at businesses, schools. One unique thing about Greenfield actually is that they had a really great connection with their school district, and their school district was very instrumental in helping get the word out with parents through Parent Square, and then also even encouraging students to vote on this as well. So that's one unique aspect that really came out from this for Greenfield's steering committee's work. And so in kind of reflecting on, how can we get the public to participate more if maybe a town hall may not necessarily be the ideal solution. For the Soledad Committee, they want to do things differently, and instead they want to go directly where the community is already meeting up at. So their kickoff event was at the Soledad Farmers Market, and what's unique about Soledad is that while they were at the farmers market, they went canvassing and actually having personal conversations with individuals at the farmers market to kind of lure them in and kind of get them familiar, like, what is this ballot exactly for? What we saw from a lot of the committees, and mostly with Soledad too, as they were canvassing, a lot of folks asked, like, what do I need to prove anything to be eligible to vote? And they were rather surprised that they didn't really necessarily have to prove. Like, the only kind of eligibility requirements that the steering committee decided is that they live or work in said city and at least of a certain age, mainly for the younger folks, but they didn't have to show an ID or fill out application or anything. And that just goes to show that, like, you know, with these communities that we worked with, given that, you know, there's still a significant undocumented population within these communities, those are the types of concerns that we get when reaching out to the public. So the steering committee really learned of, like, how mindful we should be when we go about, you know, asking people to fill out something. And so with King City followed the same idea, going out to the community where they're already at. Their election kickoff event was Dia de los Muertos. And what they wanted to really focus on is get the target audience of Safe Routes to School, which is going where there's a high presence of children and parents. So they also did a lot of canvassing here too. And then another event they did also was the Trunk or Treat in King City. That saw about 2,000 people attending that event. So King City actually ended up being the city that received the most ballots. They received 755, with 30 of them being online. So we did have that option for people to vote online, but then it's again, like, how do you get people to actually fill out the form instead of just saying, like, here's this, whenever you have time, fill it out, please. So that personal interaction really helps in getting people involved. And then finally, Gonzales is our last committee that we worked with. They had their election at the Gonzales Car Show, and then they also did a lot of additional outreach, like with food banks, at the Day of the Child, because this happened during April of earlier this year. But what's unique about them is that they just didn't want to, you know, just target families. They also wanted to invite the greater population, specifically the senior community. One of our committee members is part of a local group they're called Adventure Seeking Seniors. And she really, you know, wanted to emphasize with the community that, like, the seniors are just as important in giving input of what projects should get funded, because they use the streets there just quite as often as children do. So a lot of different ways that the committee members approach this, and a lot of great participation for the committee itself as well. So once the elections are over, the results are in, the committee then looks at the results and then decide from the top voted projects which ones are actually fundable. Because they had that $250,000 budget that they had to meet. So they prepared a recommendation and they went on, and again, we wanted them to drive this process. So we had them present these projects to their city council. And staff was there to assist them, of course, but they were really the ones that did all this work. So they, you know, should be the ones shining. So this was actually, for a lot of committee members, their first time presenting in front of the city council, making a public comment, and also just their first time in general attending a city council meeting. So it really meant a lot to them to be able to participate in this experience. And once city councils have approved the projects, and which in this case all city councils have, the steering committee meets to do a mini celebration, and that's where, staff, that's an opportunity for us to thank them for their time and then to allow them to reflect on the process. A lot of what we've got from the steering committee members as a response to this process, that they were really grateful to be part of an opportunity where they get to be part of the decision-making process and get to learn a lot about their local government. And they also learned a lot about what it takes to implement a transportation project and safe streets project. And they also felt like with this process, they were able to build that trust with their cities and then also get to know their neighbors better. A lot of folks, they kind of knew each other, given, there's small towns, but after this, they really got to know their neighbors well, and they were really happy for that. And one funny thing that I always find it funny when that folks would tell me after this is that they had always let me know, like, Aaron, if there's any work that you guys are doing here, just let us know, and we're happy to help support you. So it really builds that trust, and they're really looking forward to be more involved in future projects. So next steps, the work does not stop here. The participatory budgeting process, at least we finished with that, but now it's time to implement the projects. So cities are actively working now to implement these projects. Greenfield is the first city so far, because now it's been a year that they've received their funding. So they actually finished this project that I have here on this image. It's a 12th Street sidewalk project in Greenfield between Vista Verde Middle School and the Oak Elementary School, which is now complete. This is just when it was in construction. So as cities implement these projects, continuing work is to keep the committee and the public informed. We've already started that with Greenfield, and we co-hosted a meeting with the City of Greenfield, and Public Works Director Jamie Tugel gave an update on the projects that that they have been working on to implement the 250,000. And the steering committee from Greenfield was really grateful that Jamie Tugel herself came to speak on those projects, because now that really built a great connection between the committee and the Public Works Director as well.
And Councilwoman Ortiz, she was in the photo.
Oh yes, Councilwoman Ortiz. So with that, today's recommendation is for the board to program the regional surface transportation funds for the city of Gonzales. They're the last ones in this process, and they have already approved the projects. So now they're just waiting for the TAMC board to allocate their $250,000 and to amend the Exhibit A of the local funding agreement to program this funding projects. So with that, I'll happy to answer any questions then. Thank you.
All right. I have questions about that slide, but I'm going to let those go. Anyone? Mary?
I don't have a question. I just want to throw my hat into the support of this program. What you have opened up to people is so much more than just just a narrow sort of thought that came through the grant. This is just amazing. Do you know, it's like empowering people at the core. And I'm very proud of TAMC and the leadership that Todd has brought and the work that you've done to make this happen. You know, that's real community organization. And it's really, I'm thrilled to be even a tiny little part of it. Thank you.
And just also want to kind of second that issue I've been raising the time I've been elected and before then is we have to find ways to reach out to the community better than we've done in the past. It's too often when we reach out, we sort of select who the stakeholders are and not the public. And this one is just really democracy in action that lets people be involved. They come in, they get to choose. It's unique, empowering, and I think, on my view, very effective method. I think it's a real feather in the cap of this agency. I don't see it done by others, and I just want to give 150% support for it. There's also a safe route to school going on in North County, and I know there's with a steering committee kind of pulled together. We've got 40 people or something in that, if I understand correctly, or maybe more. I mean, it's become really, really supportive. I think there's going to be greater challenges. I think it's easier to do this in an urban setting. We sort of like have it with Castroville, but we start getting out to some real rural areas, your challenges are going to be a lot greater. But more people you can get putting thoughts in, the more local people that can, who understand the problems, the possible solutions, the better off we are. I just have nothing but some positive things to say about the way this is run.
And now at that end of the table, they about said it all, but I did want to thank Aaron for his presentation, and TAMC, Todd, and everybody who's been involved, the jurisdictions, all the cities, and all the public who has participated, and letting their city know what they need, and for the input, public input. And you can certainly see a lot of community pride there just looking at the pictures. So I am like 100 and I'll say 200%.
I got 250s there, 3 is there, 3 and 3. I got a 250 here, and 300%.
Getting ready for the next fair.
That's it. Anyone else? Mike.
So, and I was very, very happy with the process, what Aaron and TAMC has done. And just a couple of things I thought were very important was how the committee started to understand the complexity of putting any project forward, and their inputs based on learning all that process was extremely helpful. And for us, city level, to encourage more participation, absolutely just necessary. But the fact that the meetings were led in Spanish and translated in English, where our community is mostly Hispanic, was a big, big deal. And what I liked too is there was no one English speaker who was complaining. They didn't mind at all. And it helped facilitate a much stronger conversation. I couldn't understand it, but I know that the TAMC representatives were taking in a lot of information that was very, very helpful that we weren't taking at our council meetings. So I'd love to see you somehow, and that process be continued in some form or another on these really relevant projects that they're hitting every day. So San Francisco School is perfect. So thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Anyone else? We'll take this out to the public briefly, so if there's any public input.
Good morning. My name is Eric Peterson, and those who know me well know I've had a lot to do with bicycling since I was a teenager. And I'm not going to go into the whole list. I was actually listed as a contributor to 2 Caltrans reports in 1975. So that'll kind of explain it. It's really neat in the communities that get kids on bicycles. And I've seen some, and I've been in some. And it is healthier. It's a lot more fun going to school on a bicycle than getting driven. And it opens up other doors. I have known over the years many friends who just started riding bicycles when they were kids, and some went on to be professional bicycle racers. And it has affected lives in many positive ways. And having Aaron do this is great too. But it's nice to have things like this. And there are an awful lot of resources out there for communities who want to take this further. And another thing is just one quick thing is, and I'm going to use Palo Alto as an example, but it's kind of the lunatic fringe because Palo Alto was one of the first 2 communities in California to have a bikeway system. And I was privileged to be a Palo Alto employee at the time on that project. But a lot of these things, you'll notice the kids are wearing helmets. And that is so good because the damage to the brain is kind of a disaster. Thank you.
Thank you, Eric. All right, I'm not seeing any hands up via Zoom and nobody coming forward in room. I want to bring it back. I know we have an official action, but before we head there, Aaron, I want to thank you for your leadership. I know that this work is real work, right? And it takes getting out there and taking 4 different models and not showing up at each one with a cookie cutter and saying, this is how we're going to do it, is something that we rarely see, especially down in the Salinas Valley. And I know I've shared this about you in the past, but Aaron's from San Ardo, right? A place that often doesn't get resourced or seen. And so you bringing your perspective to the table and helping use that to lead these communities in a way that they feel seen and heard means a lot to me. I know that for the adventure-seeking seniors in Gonzales and all the folks in King City, including my kindergarten teacher who reached out to me to make sure that I had voted in the polling, it meant something. They felt seen, they felt heard, and they wanted to make sure that this process was successful. And I think that that speaks to volumes to who you are and what you brought to the table on behalf of our agency. You're a great face and representative for us. So thank you for your leadership in these efforts. Please.
Could I add to that? Sorry. TAMC, we often refer to the agency or staff as Team TAMC because we are working on a lot of different projects at a given time. And everyone has their lead roles and their support roles. But this is a great example where it was the whole team working on it. Aaron has done a great job presenting today and on the taking over the role for the Salinas Valley Safe Route School outreach. Yannicka has been a big part of this. Ariana Green has been instrumental in creating the program. Ariande's been working on it also. Maria's been at the meetings at some nights. We've got Amelia and Alyssa doing the North County. And these are meetings, they're generally at night after they've been working at the office during the day. So I just want to point out that there are a lot of great work from the whole team, and I'm glad it's so well received by the board. So thank you.
Eric, final thoughts?
Yeah, I also just want to echo what Todd had said, that it's a very, very passionate project that I've enjoyed so much doing, and figure out all the ways to implement it. But I really have to owe it a lot to my team. Like Yannicka, for instance, she had, was the one who started did all the legwork in getting it started. And then Ariana as well, and with the rest of the team. So it's been a great learning experience, and I don't know how to express how much grateful I am for being part of this. So thank you.
Good work. With that, I know I've got 100%, 150%, 200%, but do I have a motion? Got a motion from Carbone, a second from Adams, and we'll go back to you, Eloise, for officially accepting the 2 pieces requested by staff in this motion. Thank you.
District 1, alternate Gonzalez.
Aye.
District 2, Supervisor Church.
Aye.
District 3, Supervisor Lopez.
500%.
District 4, alternate Mora.
Aye.
District 5, Supervisor Adams.
Aye.
City of Carmel by the Sea.
Aye.
City of Del Rio.
Aye.
City of Gonzales.
Aye.
City of Greenfield.
Aye.
City of King City.
Aye.
City of Monterey.
Aye.
City of Pacific Grove.
Aye.
City of Salinas.
Aye.
City of San City.
Aye.
City of Soledad.
Definitely.
Chair, the motion passes.
Thank you, Eloise. All right, with that, we have concluded the item. Thank you again, Aaron and team. And I think we're going to jump over to our reports from transportation providers, beginning with Caltrans. I know they were with us on Zoom.
Yes, good morning, everyone. Orchid Monterey Ochoa. The only announcement that I have is just continue updates for Rocky Creek, which continues to make progress. Construction continues to be up till summer of 2025, beginning past Sunday, and continuing through October 4th. Travelers will encounter a full closure on Highway 1 and Rocky Creek from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. to allow for construction of the reinforced concrete support columns. Daytime travelers will continue to enjoy access through the repair site, driving on the northbound lane and directly by temporary signal systems. Stay tuned in the Caltrans PIO and our website for updates and changing conditions. That's all I have for today.
Thank you, Orkin. All right, then with that, let's go ahead and head over to MST. Oh,
Thank you, Chair. Happy to announce that for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2024, MST experienced a nearly 25% increase in passenger boardings at for our fixed route services, which is a 25% increase over the previous year, and a nearly 50% increase since June 30th, 2022, with the implementation of our Better Bus Network. We've seen increases across the board on our fixed route bus services, our MST ride services for persons with disabilities, our taxi voucher trips, our senior shuttles, veteran shuttles, and our volunteer trips that are made throughout the county on behalf of persons who aren't able to access our services in rural areas. We're also would like to inform the public that our buy one, get one free monthly pass program is still available while supplies last. We are using some state funds to subsidize a buy one, get one free. And you can purchase those passes up to 5 sets of passes per individual at any MST customer service center or online at mst.org. Thank you.
all right, then we're gonna head over to our friends at the airport, Fly Monterey. Carl.
I'm here. Nothing new to report at the airport. We're still right in the middle of our terminal project. We're still working on the ramp in the parking lot, and hope to go out to bid at the end of the year, and 18 months later, we should have the new terminal. On another note, our executive director, Mike Lapierre, has submitted his retirement notice, and he'll be leaving us next June, or this June coming up in 2025. We put out a press release. He will be missed. He accomplished a lot over 9+ years, and we wish him well in retirement and hope to get further along in our terminal project before he leaves.
Thank you, Carl. I think the last agency I have on my list here is MBARD. Do we have somebody with MBARD with us via Zoom? Didn't think I saw anyone with that. We'll go ahead and take this out for public comment. I see a number ending in 1705. 1705. We'll give you the floor. You have 2 minutes.
Yes. Commenting on the MST report, as I've said before, the bus service is declining, deplorably so, in the last 35 years, and particularly in the last couple of years. And when I called Mr. Cedric, or one of the MST employees, asking him why they had these transfers now, they said they couldn't afford what they had before. And yet you can okay a surf project for $91 million. So I'm asking all of you to please start grant projects asking for money so that MST doesn't have to split up its bus service rides with transfers where we have to wait 10 to 15 minutes in heavy traffic, sometimes rain and wind and the pollution of the cars. This is incredibly inconvenient. And to say that the transportation is improving is a lie. And I ask each one of you, who took the MST bus today to where you are? I don't think any of you rode it. And the only way you're going to take it, only way you're going to learn about MST is if you start taking it yourselves. So you're responsible for all the pollution that's going on around here because you're the planners, you're the ones who say okay to these projects, and you're not doing enough to fight global warming. So please listen to the public. You keep saying you want public input, and most people have just given up. And only fools like me keep trying to make a difference. Please start taking the bus so you can fix it. Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to jump to the number ending in 2837. Again, 2837.
Hello, Brian Rosen here. I would like to comment on the MST presentation. What I'm concerned about is what's been left out. What happened is MST, TAMC, Senator Laird, and politicians had private meetings with Coastal Commission staff, meant many hours, while the rest of us got very little time. And the environmental organizations opposed to the SURF project were excluded, such as the Center for Biological Diversity, the Sierra Club, the Native Plant Society. And this is wrong. And then here we had a bunch of politicians using their influence, which is apparently irresistible, to get a very destructive project through. Mr. Cedric has claimed the Coastal Commission was misrepresenting things. It's actually Mr. Cedric and MST that's been misrepresenting things for many years. For many years, he's claimed that tracks wouldn't be taken out, and he's been bragging about the public outreach. All of a sudden, there's a whole new project without public outreach, and nobody seems to care. I think a lot of this public outreach is just window dressing. They don't care what the public wants. It's just they've got their minds made up what they want. We get a destructive project that's going to destroy the sand dunes, which is completely unnecessary. Mr. Cedric is telling people that the State Parks Department supports it. In reality, it's the staff members and environmental scientists did not support it. They concurred for an EIR and an exam of alternatives, but they were overridden by their bosses who were politically appointed, their boss. So Mr. Cedric, MST, has a destructive history of, now they're greenwashing like I've seen before. MST tried to take out, 3,000 oak trees about 10 years ago, and now they're the surf project when a simple carpool lane would work.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Your time is up. We appreciate your comments. Anyone else in the room or via Zoom? Okay, not seeing any. We'll go ahead and bring it back to this board. Is there any additional comments from members? All right, hearing none, we're going to proceed. Having received those reports, at this time, I'll see if there's any reports on meetings attended by board members at Transportation Agency expense as required by state law.
None that I'm aware of.
Industrial Coordinating Council, I think I mentioned that last time.
Yes, last time.
Last time. All right. So moving on, Executive Director's report.
All right, thank you. Two events that I just wanted to highlight that TAMC is a sponsor of each of them. One is the Ciclovia in Salinas, which is October 6th, and the Ciclovia in King City, which is October 13th. And there's flyers over on the side there if anyone wants to pick up a flyer for the event. Ciclovias are where streets are shut down for several hours, where people can get out and enjoy the space and be part of the community instead of just having cars driving up down the street. So really fun event. If you haven't been to one before, take the time to check it out because it's a great way to be part of the community. And then the other thing that I wanted to mention is we're entering a new phase of the Toro Park cut-through traffic project. And there will be a month ago, there was a partial closure at Torero Drive, and it successfully stopped the cut-through traffic, contributed a little bit to probably some delays on the main line. There's going to be a next phase, which is limited closure for Portola Drive over by Reservation. And we're continuing to work with the community on adjustments to this as we test out different ideas to hopefully reduce the impacts. And there will be a public meeting on October 8th, a community workshop to listen about the community issues about the project and discuss it. And there's also a flyer for that project. So we'll go through and continue to make some adjustments and work with Caltrans on the signal timing, hopefully. and then bring it back to the community to make some decisions on whether anything becomes permanent or whether it gets put back to the way it was before. But I think it's a really, from our perspective, a great opportunity just to try a few different things, experiment with what might be modified, and get community feedback on the process. So with that, that's my report.
All right. Any questions or comments? Mary?
Just on this one, I'm just again very grateful for the work that's gone on. That has just been such a mess for people who live in the Turtle Park area as far as just not being able to get out of the driveways, for example. But thank you, and I'm looking forward to the community meeting. And I have a separate subject totally to comment on this.
There's announcements or comments. We'll come back for that. Anyone else? All right. Any public input on this? I see 2 hands up. I'm going to go to number 2837 first. The floor is yours. 2 minutes.
Hello, Brian Rosen here. I'm very concerned. Can you hear me?
All right. I've got you, Brian. Go for it.
Thank you. I'm very concerned about Mr. Muck's behavior and about TAMC's behavior and history. TAMC has a history of basically of doing terrible things for the environment. Some years ago, they supported the Hatton Canyon Freeway, which was extremely environmentally damaging. Now they've been supporting the surf project, which is extremely environmentally damaging and unnecessary. There's only so much money out there, and there's not enough money left to do the good projects when all the stupid projects are done. We spend $100 million, maybe $92 million on the surf project. Then there's never going to be any money for things that really will make a difference, like the train. And Mr. Muck has been misleading the public that he doesn't want to benefit one mode of transportation after another. That's what he's been doing in his support of the surf project. And it's just, and that tracks wouldn't be removed. And he gets an A+ maybe from all of you, and you're all politicians. You're all going to congratulate each other, and you're going to congratulate Mr. Muck. But the history of TAMC is deeply troubled, and Mr. Muck is deeply troubled, and the surf project is very destructive. When a simple carpooling would work, but that's not an alternative any one of you seem to ever have one to look at. And Mr. Muck is making, I don't know, $280,000 a year to damage the environment and the future for the county. And you're going to bypass 4 miles of traffic. What about the rest of Highway 1? You're not doing anything about that. There's not going to be the money for it. The next 16 miles is going to be congested. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to go to number 1705, number ending in 1705. You have 2 minutes.
Hear me?
We can.
Can you hear me? Yes. So the last evaluation of Tom Muck, I was criticized for being rude. And criticism is hard on all of us, but I had to speak my experience with him. But is it Todd Muck who is the problem? It's you, TAMC members, because you're the influence. You're the powerful group of politicians, mayors, supervisors, city council members who obviously tell Mr. Muck what direction he should go in. In evaluation of all of you, I can only say what you've done to TAMC in the last few years is a disgrace for our transportation needs. Now, the crowning glory is your plan to cover up the railroad tracks for the surf bus lines so you can develop, the dunes. And with people like you in power, we have no hope of fighting global warming. No wonder so many have given up the fight. And I'm asking, and I will continue to ask, that you start asking for grant money to bring back the train and stop the surf project so that we can bring the thousands that are now driving in their cars to our peninsula. But if you can't do that, which I know you won't, at least do a carpool program, because the carpool program that TAMC used to have was wonderful, and it transported thousands of people to Santa Cruz, including myself, on a daily basis, so I didn't have to drive. and you have cut that. You have slashed everything that's good about TAMC. And when I called Mr. Muck and asked him to try to get the MST bus line to have one route from the plaza all the way to the Carmel Village, he said they couldn't afford it, and that was it. And I said, why don't you get grant money? Oh, we can't do that. And it's all an I can't do attitude. You're all can't doers, and you need to start. You need to start taking global warming seriously.
Thank you for your perspective. Anyone else? Mr. Peterson.
Name's Eric Peterson. I just can't let that go. I've been dealing with TAMC for over 2 decades, and then had my dealings with MST, and they are 2 of the best run agencies I've ever seen. And I know Todd, and he's excellent. And for those who want to see a dysfunctional agency, talk to somebody who remembers the old Port Road Reuse Authority. That was a total nightmare on a regular basis. But TAMC's got its place in getting us from point A to point B. And they do a very good job. And they hire new employees. I mean, Aaron's just one example. I hope I'm pointing you out. But somebody mentioned Ariana. I mean, these people are really good, and it is to the benefit of Monterey County. And I've always, that's a strong word, but I've always been able to communicate with TAMC employees, get straight answers and things like that. And it's the criticism just heard, well, everybody's entitled to their opinion. Mine is very different than theirs. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Peterson. Seeing no other comments, I'll bring it back to this table. Any final thoughts on this item? Hearing and seeing none, we'll jump into announcements and or comments from transportation agency members. Mary?
Thank you. This is on my mind because of the evaluation coming up for the executive director and such. And I'm talking about the form that we have. And I just want to say that the county is looking at revising the form that it uses for performance evaluations. And I think it would be a good idea for us as a board to consider using a similar kind of approach to performance evaluation. I'm not saying that everything the county does is fabulous. Most of it is. But I think in this regard, we're having somebody take a real close look at what are the sorts of things that one values and that are necessary to gauge within a performance review. And it doesn't necessarily fit in a grid. So I'm just throwing that out to this board as we look into the next year's performance reviews and considering maybe trying to take a peek at what the county is doing, and perhaps other agencies on which we sit might want to do the same thing. So we would all have a cohesive way of looking at the performance and the things that should be evaluated among all of the different agencies and districts on which we sit. So,
Mary, you're saying next year. So as you walk out the door, you're throwing the grenade and running. Thank you, Mary. I heard you. I agree.
That'd be a great shit.
Yes, Mike.
I want to really express my thanks to TAMC for the partnership on Ciclovia. Again, October 13th from 12 p.m. to 4 p.m. And we are looking at making this an annual event within our city. So thank you again, TAMC.
Good work. Yeah, Carl.
Yeah, I'd like to announce that on October 28th at 9 a.m. to 3:30 p.m., the Transit Transformation Task Force, which was created by the legislature in adopting SB 135, it's a 25 appointed officials from around the state, which I am one of, will be holding one of their meetings here in Monterey at the Monterey Conference Center. Again, on October 28th from 9 to 10 p.m. It may be worth some of your while to come in and listen in to some of the discussion as we talk about how this state can deliver transit and transportation projects more efficiently and effectively. There've been some interesting conversations. This will be the 6th out of, I think, there are going to be a dozen meetings by the time we're done. Thank you.
One point for that meeting, Carl, if you look at your member list, you'll notice there's not a single rural representative.
I am the rural
I know,
representative.
you're the
and
only one.
It's from Clovis
Yeah.
as well. So we are the two rural representatives.
But even Fresno County and Monterey were on the large end of when you have
Understood.
counties of 800 and 1,200 people, right? So just any attempt to broaden their scope that we've asked that of the state. And so any effort you could help in getting more rural folks on that. Would be
Absolutely. And I reach out to, as in my role, I reach out to the California Association of Coordinated Transportation, which represents small rural and tribal associations to get their viewpoints, so that I'm not representing MST, I'm representing rural agencies and their viewpoints. I have to be the one selected, so.
All right. Well, we'd love to connect with you through RCRC too. That's been our attempt there to try to get some additional insight.
Absolutely.
All right. Anyone else? Hearing none, we've arrived at adjournment. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.